Have you ever looked at a painting and felt like you were actually there? I mean, not just seeing a place, but really feeling it, like the cool mist on your skin or the sudden quiet of a heavy snowfall. Well, today we're diving into the story of a Japanese master who did exactly that. His work was so powerful, it traveled all the way across the world and right into the hands of one of Europe's most famous painters. Just look at this. On the left, we've got a Japanese woodblock print from 1857. And on the right, that's an oil painting by none other than Vincent van Gogh from 1887. Van Gogh was so blown away by this artist's work that he didn't just admire it from afar. Nope, he copied it meticulously, brushstroke for brushstroke. He was trying to get inside it, to figure out the secrets behind that radical composition and that incredible energy. So it begs the question, right? Who was this artist from the other side of the planet whose vision could so totally captivate a legend like Van Gogh? Well, his name was歌川広重, and as you're about to see, his path to becoming one of the most famous artists in Japanese history was, let's just say, not your typical artist's journey. So Hiroshige was a master of ukiyo-e. It's a really cool concept. It translates to pictures of the floating world. And that floating world was the buzzing city life of old Tokyo, then called Edo. The theaters, the restaurants, all the hotspots. Most artists at the time were painting famous kabuki actors or beautiful women. But Hiroshige, he turned his eyes to the world outside the city, to the landscapes of Japan. And in doing so, he basically changed the game. What's just wild about Hiroshige's story is where he came from. He wasn't born into some artsy dynasty. His dad was a fire warden, which was actually a minor samurai position in charge of protecting Edo Castle from fires. And get this, after his parents died when he was just a kid, he inherited the job. So for almost 20 years, he lived this double life, fire warden by day, struggling artist by night. And he wasn't having much luck either. But then, in his mid-30s, after 2 long decades of trying to make a name for himself, everything changed. It all came down to a single journey that would totally ignite his career and redefine Japanese art forever. Okay, so to understand this huge turning point, you need to know about the Tokaido Road. This was not just some road, this was the road. It was like the main artery of Japan, connecting the shogun's capital, Edo, which is now Tokyo, to the imperial capital, Kyoto. It was constantly buzzing with merchants, pilgrims, nobles, everyone. So in 1832, Hiroshige gets the chance of a lifetime. He gets to travel the entire length of this famous highway with an official group. And the whole way, he was just sketching like mad, capturing everything he saw. The views, the changing weather, the people. And all those sketches became his masterpiece, the 53 stations of the Tokaido. Now here's a fun fact. The series is actually made up of 55 prints. There's one for each of the 53 post stations, plus one for the start in Edo, and one for the finish line in Kyoto. And the reaction was just explosive. An instant, overnight sensation. People in Japan had never seen their own country shown this way before. It was a revelation. All of a sudden, the fire warden from Edo was the most famous landscape artist in the entire country. But this was way more than just a bestseller. It was a full-on artistic revolution. So what was it exactly? What made these prints so incredibly special that they captured the imagination of a whole nation and eventually the world? Well, it boils down to a few key things he was doing. First, his incredible use of color, especially this brilliant imported blue that got nicknamed Hiroshige blue. Then, he started mixing things up, using Western-style perspective to give his scenes this amazing feeling of depth. But maybe his real genius was his ability to capture the weather, the atmosphere. Nobody could paint a sudden rainstorm or a silent snowy night like he could. And finally, his landscapes were never empty. They were always alive with the stories of regular people just living their lives. The Chizoku Art Museum put it perfectly. They said that when you look at a Hiroshige print, you can experience the atmosphere as if you had traveled there yourself. He didn't just show you a place, he put you right inside of it. And that unique talent, that ability to bottle a moment in time, made sure that Hiroshige's influence would travel far, far beyond the shores of Japan. So once Japan opened up to the West, these woodblock prints just flooded into Europe, and artists there were completely stunned. I mean, at the time, European art was pretty buttoned up and academic.
Hiroshige's bold designs, his flat blocks of color, his focus on these fleeting, everyday moments, it was like a lightning bolt. It gave artists like the Impressionists a whole new visual language.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, full circle. Toward the end of his life, Hiroshige created one last epic series called 100 Famous Views of Edo. And in that series was the print of the Plum Garden, the exact one that made its way to Paris, found its way to Vincent van Gogh, and inspired him to create his own version.
So when you really look back at the work of Utagawa Hiroshige, you realize he wasn't just drawing places on a map.
He was painting the feeling of a moment, the shock of cold rain, the warmth of a roadside tea house, the quiet beauty of a snowy evening. He was painting an experience. And that really just leaves us with one last question to think about. If an artist could capture one fleeting moment from your own life, one specific feeling or atmosphere from your personal journey, what scene would you want them to paint?